Good evening, and call this meeting to order. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please be seated. A roll call, Assistant City Clerk.
Okay. Vice Mayor and Vice Chair Mahan. Councilmember and Board Member Hardy. Councilmember and Board Member O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember and Board Member Davis. Councilmember and Board Member Watanabe. Councilmember and Board Member Shahal.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Gilmore.
Here.
Thank you.
Would you like to read the statement?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
AB 23 announcement, members of the Santa Clara Stadium Authority, Sports and Open Space Authority, and Housing Authority are entitled to receive $30 for each attended meeting. Statement of behavioral standards. The City of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that as the presiding officer, the mayor's and chair's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed, and that use of the gavel indicates all conversations must conclude and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. Welcome and thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Assistant City Clerk. Reports of actions taken in closed session. City Attorney, Stadium
Council took
Authority.
no reportable action in closed session.
No reportable action. Thank you very much. Continuances and exceptions. Is there any member of the council board that has any continuances or exceptions? Any members of the staff or the public? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go into our first special order of business, which is the recognition of Santa Clara University students' downtown plan scroll concept. I'm going to turn this over to Councilmember Davis to talk about this and introduce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. During our downtown revitalization, look at you already down there. We asked the Santa Clara University students to engage, but this was over a year ago. So now I have two young ladies, and I just want to give you a little brief bio on them. This is a project that they did. Vida Pengali is currently a senior at Santa Clara University, majoring in computer science and minoring in political science. As a senior senator on Santa Clara University's Associated Student Government, she is also the chair of the Facilities and Operations Committee. She recently helped her school win $100,000 towards sustainability with her efforts in heading the Hyundai Challenge. Along with sustainability, she is passionate about gaining support and engaging for the new Santa Clara downtown. Thank you. And hopes this scroll will help increase awareness to the movement. Eleanor Lammers Lewis is also a senior at Santa Clara University, majoring in anthropology. She is a ASG Civic Engagement Chair, representing the student body under the Community Development Branch. Her job is to bring students and neighbors together with the goal of fostering community. Working on the scroll with Vida, they have done a great job at this to develop the future of the downtown together. So as their project, they took on a scroll that I would love to put into into a time capsule when we get our downtown, so that they will be recorded in history and probably opened 100 years from now, so that people know that these two young ladies did this project at Santa Clara University, and this is what they came up with. And they are just outstanding students, and I wanted to recognize them for being engaged in community development, being engaged in community economics, and making us just all proud. So after you guys get this thing rolled out, I want you to come to the podium and speak.
Wow, that's,
Perfect length.
oh, perfect.
yay!
There, I'll put my computer on it here.
She's gonna hold it. Okay,
I'll hold it here. Perfect.
okay, ladies, if you
Wow.
can make it through the 2 doors and introduce yourself to the world, we're on TV. Go ahead, either one.
The microphone.
My name is Eleanor Lammers Lewis.
And hi, I'm Vidya Pingali, and we're both part of Santa Clara University student government. And we're going to talk a little bit about our scroll and why we decided to make it.
As you can see, this is an extremely large scroll, handcrafted, blood, sweat, and tears into this. We were just inspired, and we both share the belief that activism and spreading awareness about being engaged with your community should be really spirited and symbolic. So we thought time to follow through with something and break the ice on talking about our downtown.
Yeah, so we got involved with the Reclaiming Our Downtown group last year, and there were a lot of ideas, and we wanted to find a way to compile these ideas. So what's a better concept than to actually have them written out? So this is a lot of Santa Clara University students and faculty. We tabled a bunch last year, and students were super excited, wrote down like all their ideas, signed in support, and now like most of the school knows about the downtown. And so even though we're going to leave school, we hope that this concept continues for the next few years so that when the downtown is actually created, everyone is excited for it.
It's been a great experience learning from everyone in our community and knowing what they want for their downtown, because it gets the mojo going, everyone gets involved, and these are the building blocks for developing a popping city that university people and neighbors will love. There's something special about signing your name to something, and we want to make people feel important and unified, so that's what this scroll represents. And we just hope relations between the government, reclaiming our downtown, and students can become even stronger in the future.
Yeah. So our next step with the scroll, like Debbie said, it would be cool to have it in some type of time capsule, because we know that construction for the downtown doesn't begin until a few years. So, and then if they could open it and then unveil it, and then actually use some of these ideas, and that would be really cool.
Next steps in this process, as well as we've integrated a downtown committee that works with ASG and the student body. Also, we'll be passing on this initiative to people that follow our positions. And then also, we're going to record all of these outrageous ideas into a digital copy so we can actually get a look. Some are pretty crazy, but I feel like if we put it in an Excel sheet, you'll get some knowledge of what people want. Thank you so much. We'd love to have you guys sign it in the last few minutes of our time. So we have some
Oh, good.
Okay, we
And
put some
also-
pens up on the
yeah.
thing there, so
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Also, feel free to write what you want to see in our downtown.
Okay, thank you. So Mayor, we would like to have the council come down and sign this, and you ladies didn't get a chance to sign it at the meeting, so by all means, please sign it. And I know that you have to translate all this later, but thank you very much for doing this, and we will sign.
Oh, thank you. Debbie, we also have these.
Okay, we'll do that after.
Where do you want to sign this end or the middle? Where do you want us to sign?
At the top, yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Another pen. Yeah, they're down there. Writing a book.
Sorry.
Kath, Raj.
There are some around.
Here.
Yeah.
Josh, did you write? They're all nice. That's what go over there.
Rito. Back. Kyle. Debbie. Josh, you in here? Josh has a pen. Got a pen? Everybody got a pen? Okay. All right. Okay. And you have your Vanna White over here. Nancy B. Genie. To re-roll. Yeah. Well, hurry up.
Anybody, let anybody sign on
Yeah,
that
let
end.
it sign on that end. Yeah.
Anybody who wants to.
Yeah, get some pens here.
Nancy got
Okay.
Want to sign, Brian? Sorry, Raj. Here. I want Mondo burrito back. We're gonna have to come back with the Excel spreadsheet so we can see. We'll have time to roll this up and then we're gonna present you with the mail. That's cool. No, it's a push. Okay, then roll it up.
We have something for you.
We have something for you, so quickly roll. Nancy, can you help them? We have to give a proclamation. Yes, make it look like a scroll. Okay, ladies, I need you back at the microphone with your scroll. So for your efforts and your hard work and handmade paper Excellent job. The mayor is going to present you with little mayoral proclamations for the work that you did and congratulate you and the team community spirit that you have in the city of Santa Clara. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Mayor Gilmore.
Thank you, and if the council could join us down front so we can take a picture, and these are special mayoral recognitions
Yes.
for all their work. This was really fun. Thank you for doing this. I'm really excited to see those great ideas, those crazy and wonderful ideas, because that's what everyone's really looking for. So thank you for your energy and your passion, and this project's going to go on for a few years, so we're so glad the university students are involved. So if you join us up front, we have something for you, and then after this, we're going to hear from Nancy Biagini about the home tour. Okay, very good. Thank you. So following along the same lines of downtown activity, I'm going to call up Nancy Biagini to give us an update on the Santa Clara Historic Home Tour that's happening this weekend. Nancy.
I have to follow that?
No, I know, that's hard to follow.
Wow, and I was reading some of the scroll items. It's going to be fun when we have that new downtown with their input. So anyway, I'll get right to it. Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and viewers at home. My name is Nancy Biagini, and I'm the chair of our 41st Annual Santa Clara Historic Home Tour, which is presented by the Santa Clara Historic Home Preservation Society in conjunction with the Old Quad Residents Association. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes here to give everyone a taste of what's coming this Friday and Saturday. You've got the screen show you the times and the dates. I can tell you that hundreds of volunteers from Santa Clara assist with our tour every year, and without our home tour committee, our partners, our volunteers, our sponsors, and of course our fabulous homeowners, we could not continue this holiday tradition. There we go. So, since 1978, give you a little history, our home tours showcased beautiful historical homes in the city. You can see a few of them up on the screen. We distribute proceeds to benefit nonprofits that have ties to historical preservation here in Santa Clara. And the homes that are shown also show you how vintage buildings can be restored to create delightful structures while maintaining their historical integrity. It's a much-loved community event that demonstrates the value of keeping historical homes and neighborhoods intact. Now, I can guarantee you, if you're anything like me, you're going to fall in love with one or several of the homes on the tour this year. There are 4 of them, along with a public site, and on the tour, you can learn about each one's history. A nice advantage of this year is the homes are close together, so if y'all get a chance for a nice walk to work off that Thanksgiving dinner last week. That too. Let me move further. Okay, and here's a quick look at our public site. This year, it's the Mission Library, or as I always called it, the library, having grown up here. Docents there will tell the story of the library and the grounds with storyboards. And then you can wander over to the library community room for a sip, a bit of music, and a chat with the Santa Clara Parade of Champions. You'll find them there with complimentary refreshments and a chance to win. I think right now we're over 20 opportunity baskets that will be raffled off. This is their first fundraiser for the 2020 Parade of Champions, another beloved and reborn tradition. It's also the second annual holiday cruise. But, gotta warn you, let's hope the rain subsides so Santa and his vintage car cruise participants can actually tour the homes and add to the holiday excitement. Best part, tickets are still available. I'll be in the foyer after this presentation to answer whatever questions anyone might have, and with tickets that I can sell tonight. I take cash, I take checks, and I take credit cards. Um, all of that is accepted, but you can also get tickets online at our website. You can see it printed up there. Or at one of these two fine locations that help us out, Elusive Comics and the Antique Colony. But before I go, a bit of mystery to test your savvy about historical objects. We partnered this year with Mission College Graphics Art Class, and many thanks to Professor Kasiki and her students. Our winning student, graphic artist Elena Peters, was inspired by an object commonly found in historic homes that are about 100 years old, and that's the logo. There's a pair of free tickets to this year's home tour if you can guess what inspired Alana and how she came up with that logo. But you must tell me tonight out in the foyer or email me, and you can see the email address on the screen. Hang on, I'll get there. Right there, schistorichomeTour@gmail.com. And you got to let me know before Friday, December 6th with your guess. Just be sure that you do include your guess, your name, and your contact info so I can get you those tickets. And I just found out about an hour ago, we had some complimentary tickets donated back by one of our sponsors and one of our council members. So it's not just one person's accurate guess. 3 people with the correct guess will each get a pair of complimentary tickets. Now, I do have to give a little bit of a disclaimer. This contest is not open to our volunteers, but that's because they already get free tickets. So keep that in mind for next year's tour. You can volunteer as well. There's the prices. $30 through December 5th, and on site at the Mission Branch Library, they're $35. Or I'm going to give you a quick, if I can do this right, quick look-see. There we go. Come on, do it. Am I going to get a little help here? Oh, nope, that wasn't it. I want to get to the home tour website. You got that? Ah, there we go. So here's the website, and if you want to get your tickets online, real simple. All you need to do is go to this part where it says tickets, click on it, and it's going to take you right down to where you can purchase your tickets online and a bunch of frequently asked questions as well. So that's my presentation. Thank you for the time. Let me see if I can get back on my, can I back up to the last page of the slideshow? You guys are better at this than me, that's for sure. So there's the date and times. I'll be out in the front, and if y'all have any questions up there, I'll answer them right now.
I think I might have one. Councilmember Hardy, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I love the historic home tour. I've helped many, many years
I remember.
since the 90s. Okay, that dates me. Here's my question. Last year, I had to skip the city tree lighting because I had already signed up to be a docent on Friday night. And this time, I'm having to skip the Friday night home tour because of being at the
Tree light.
tree lighting. So I'm wondering, is there any way we can start scheduling so that we don't have 2 wonderful, fun Christmas holiday traditions here in Santa Clara to, so that they don't conflict?
You know, that's
Possibly doing all Saturday I don't know.
That is actually a great point, and it's on our agenda for our wrap-up debrief in January. I think it would be great, if people want to see Christmas lights, what better opportunity is at the light ceremony? And Lisa, could we sell tickets to the home tour at the Christmas tree lighting?
Oh, yes.
I think that's an excellent idea. We'll be talking
Yeah,
about doing it maybe just a Saturday with
that would be
extended
all
hours.
Saturday.
Got it. Thank
Into
you
the
for that.
evening where you see the lights.
Well, yeah, I think at
on the
that time of
homes.
year, it's like
Yeah.
5 o'clock, it's dark, so
Yeah.
Yeah, it is
maybe
dark.
a 10 to 6, something like that, gives you the same number of
yeah.
hours to see the homes. Thank you for your questions, great
Absolutely.
point.
Thank you. Any other council members? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for that information. There's a
Thank
lot
you.
going on this weekend, so that's really good. Thank you.
Getting in the holiday spirit, thanks.
So now I know what that little thing is because somebody told me. Is that cheating if I try to get on
Yes,
there?
it's
Okay,
cheating
all right.
if,
All
well,
right.
I don't know, a lot of people are giving me guesses and they're sure they know what it is, and so far.
No, I was told what it was.
Okay, then you're,
So I guess
sorry.
I've just, yeah, all right.
You just
I guess
aced
I'll have to just
yourself
buy
out of a
ticket.
free ticket.
All
You'll
right.
have to buy a ticket, Lisa. Okay, thank you so
Wow,
much.
come on, I'll buy tickets. Thank you, Nancy, and that's going to be a fabulous home tour this year. So everybody get your tickets, Friday and Saturday. Okay, I think we're done with the special orders of business now. So we can move on to the rest of the agenda. Next, we have the consent calendar. All items are approved with one motion of the council. Is there any member of the council, Stadium Authority Board, that would like to pull any items on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, any member of the staff or the public that would like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve. consent
Motion to
calendar.
approve the consent calendar. Motion second. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have public presentations. Do we have any cards for public presentations? No cards. If any member of the public would like to speak, please come forward. Now's the time on any item that's not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to consent items pulled for discussion. We don't have any, so we'll go into our first public hearing, general business. Action on Councilmember Watanabe's request related to airport noise monitoring. Councilmember Watanabe, would you
Thank
like
you.
to make some comments on this?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I had submitted an email to the city manager before Thanksgiving and asked this item to be placed on the agenda. The reason I asked, and just as a bit of history, the city installed 4 noise monitors in 2017 to start collecting data regarding stadium noise and impacts on the neighborhoods. And the nice thing about those monitors is that they also capture jet or airplane noise 24 hours a day. So on Friday, November 22nd, Tom Pike, who is the district director for Congressman Ro Khanna, and 2 community residents, Tom Freitas and Gaurav Mangani, we met out by Montague Park at 6:30 in the morning, right off of McGregor Drive, to listen to airplane noise and also just capture the decibel levels of the planes taking off at that hour. This has become an increasing complaint by residents in the North Santa Clara residents in the neighborhoods that are in the flight path of planes taking off. The Montague neighborhoods in particular are a lot closer to the airport and are much more impacted, which is why we met there and later met at another resident's house off of Cheney Street, which is also in the flight path and impacted by airplane noise. San Jose Airport has installed a noise monitor in Montague Park by McGregor Drive, but we actually went to Aberdeen Drive as it's a lot closer to the flight path, and it made a big difference in the noise levels. And actually using a decibel measuring level device on Gaurav's phone levels were recorded as high as 87. They vary between 65 to 87. So because the city doesn't have any noise monitors in that area, that was one of the reasons why I submitted this memorandum. Of the 4 noise monitors that are currently installed, the one that's by Los Arboles, which is in the Fairway Glen area, and from talking to residents out there, they really aren't impacted by stadium noise. And so, and if you look at the data that's collected on a daily basis for that particular noise monitor, the levels really are not anywhere near the levels that the one like a Catherine Hughes and Cheney Drive capture. So my request was that this particular noise monitor be relocated to Aberdeen Drive since there is no specifically a city noise monitor on the other side of Montague. And because I feel like the city should be collecting data for those neighborhoods, especially since they're the closest to the airport. And the reason I'm suggesting this particular noise monitor is due to the fact from talking to residents in that neighborhood, again, for the in the Los Arboles neighborhood, they aren't impacted by stadium noise. And then on top of that, since I submitted that memorandum, I recently learned that the environmental impact report for the San Jose Airport Master Plan is currently being reviewed by the city. So it seems like it's a very good time an opportune time to relocate the noise monitor as time is of the essence, because there's a certain period of time to respond to the environmental impact report. So with that request, I don't know if we need to refer this by consensus to the city manager to add this to another agenda, or if we can take action on the issue tonight. So that's what I'm submitting, and again, I know time is of the essence.
Okay, Vice Mayor Mahan?
So, City Attorney, if we make a finding that time is of the essence and to put it off till even our next meeting would cause undue delay and maybe not make this feasible, can we make that motion first and then take up the action?
Technically, no. I mean, there's no time is of the essence kind of issue under the Brown Act. Does the council have to take an action to do this, or can you just provide direction to staff?
City manager.
I was going to suggest that I'm going to look for a way to do this within my contract authority, and I can certainly report back to council next week as to how we're able to expedite the process, and we'll go from there.
Okay, because I believe, what is it, January 13th
January
is the
13th
deadline
is the
to
date
respond to the
that comments are
environmental
due.
impact report.
Right, and this, because of our interest in having airport noise data, this is a request that we think is very timely, and going through the policy of bringing back an item to inform whether to put it on a future agenda, it will be January 14th before this gets on an agenda. So I'm going to look for a way to do this within my authority and report back to council.
I'd like to make
Okay.
a suggestion that we don't, Councilmember Watanabe, that we don't remove a noise monitoring device from a neighborhood, but we just add an additional noise monitoring device, because I don't want a neighborhood to feel like they're not being monitored at some point, and that we just add the additional noise monitoring device, because especially with the airport expansion, as much data as we can get,
I agree,
the
yes.
better. So I just would ask that we look at adding a device as opposed to taking one away and relocating it.
I do think that that's also feasible, and what I will do is just handle it as a separate contract, not connect it to the stadium authority, and just for purposes of the responding to the EIR and
EIR for the
monitoring the
airport.
airport noise.
All right, Councilmember Chahal, and thank you, Councilmember Watanabe, for bringing this forward. Councilmember Chahal, and then Councilmember Hardy.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it is a big quality of life issue for the residents which fall under the flight path, and whatever we can do to take care of it would be an action we should do. And I think we as a council should also write to various authorities that this is getting bad to worse for that matter. And what we can talk about it in coming council meetings, how we as a council can find out solutions to this or fight for the rights of our residents who are in the flight path. And this is something, a big quality of life issue for all the residents over there. And the studies, scientific studies show the noise levels, what we are experiencing over there are very detrimental to the health of residents. And not only normal health, like heart attacks are increased, the stress levels are increasing. So it should be on top priority for our council to take care of this thing on that. And I agree, like for EIR purposes, we should be getting those additional monitor if we don't want to move it, so that we have a scientific data to prove to be given to San Jose. That way we can have good scientific data for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hardy, and then back to Watanabe.
Thank you. Just the point of decibel levels, when you talked about a difference of 15 decibels, that's actually more than 30 times louder in intensity. And so if people don't understand this decibel measurement, it is logarithmic, and it makes a big difference, just a few decibels.
Thank you. Councilmember Watanabe?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. No, I just wanted to just finalize by just saying that, I appreciate the suggestion about installing a new noise monitor. I mean, a resident actually did a poll to see what would be better, moving the noise monitor or installing a new one. And the majority of the people actually said install a new one. But again, going back to time is of the essence, we've got an environmental impact report to respond to. But I appreciate, the additional suggestion and whatever, is most feasible. I know that there's a cost involved, but, it's basically the sooner that we can start collecting the data, the city. I mean, San Jose is collecting their own data, but the city needs its own data as well. And so I'm happy to hear back from the city managers what's the most feasible thing to do.
So is there a motion that's necessary, City Attorney, or we have later on the agenda about our consensus, but should we formalize this in a motion?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
I think it's okay that as long as the city manager
City
understands.
Manager, you have clear direction that we would like another noise monitor?
I
So we
do,
don't-
and we're not going to follow the process with bringing it back for future decision-making as the policy outlines. Instead, I'll bring back a verbal report of how we've addressed this issue.
So that we can meet our deadlines.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you, Councilmember Watanabe, and thank you for your hard work on all of this. All right, so do I have any speaker cards on this issue? All right, would any member of the public like to speak on this? If so, please come forward. Yes, please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members and staff. My name's Tom Freitas. I'm sorry I didn't fill out one of your cards.
It's okay.
I've been a resident here in Santa Clara for several years, 40 plus years, and also worked at San Jose Airport. I wanted to, and I've noticed the growth at San Jose Airport, and it was growing by leaps and bounds in the last 10 years. And you really don't feel it until you have one of these large aircraft flying over your house. And the corporate aviation market now has gotten so big, they're getting 737s, not the small Lear jets that we used to have. So you're really not only talking about the approach and departure from the airport, you're talking about the east side, which are going to affect us a lot. And there's no procedure on this east side to control that noise. There's no arrival or departure to mitigate the noise for those aircraft coming in and out. They do have a procedure on the other side of the airport, so it's possible, and I know for years they've been trying to do it, but no one has really knocked on their door. And the city of Santa Clara, I would recommend that you get on top of it soon. The more people that bring it up, the more pressure we can apply to them before they make changes. So if I may say, things I've prepared that I would advocate for the city to ask San Jose to implement policies, publications in education, that is publications to the pilots and educating the pilots as they depart. They can do that with signage on the runway. They can do that through the control tower, making subtle requests to the pilots. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You can just finish up,
I
Tom.
only have a couple more things.
No, go ahead.
The quiet approach procedures I mentioned on the east side, they have publications. The FAA has publications for every airport, mostly large airports. Los Angeles has one called a quiet approach. It's done whether it's overcast or not. It's clear weather. There's other things, restrict aircraft on departing, such as you're required to depart on the longest runway, no matter what aircraft size you are, no matter how you comply if it's stage 3 or not. Depart on the longest runway and use the maximum runway necessary to get the highest altitude. And that could be done at the level of the control tower request. And that should be it for tonight. Thank you so much for your listening and your patience.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. Okay, thank you again, Councilmember Watanabe, for bringing this forward. It's very important, especially to those members on the north side who are really having to endure a lot of this noise. Let's see what we can do about it. Okay, next we have the public hearing action on successor agreement with Recology South Bay, DBA Recology Santa Clara for residential curbside recycling services and related budget amendment. And this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Welcome.
All right, good evening. I'm Dave Staub. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works. So as stated, we're here to ask for approval of the agreement with Recology for collection of our residential curbside recyclables. On November 13th, 2018, Council directed staff to enter into agreement negotiations with Recology for the services. We anticipated an increase to the base compensation due to declining revenues from the recyclable commodities due to the China National Sword policy. We also know that operating costs in the solid waste industry have outpaced the consumer price index. Our existing Recology agreement's been a very good one. It covers the recycling collection and processing services. Recology currently takes the recyclables over to Green Waste Recovery in San Jose for processing. The pricing's based on 2008 operating conditions when we went out for competitive proposal. In 2019, we prepared an amendment to the agreement, which basically extended the term through 2021 and adjusted compensation due to China's National Sword policy. In terms of the new agreement, we're looking at a term through 2036. It aligns with proposed Mission Trail Waste Systems and Green Waste Recovery Agreement terms, which we'll be bringing forward to you next week for consideration. Recology will be purchasing new renewable diesel trucks. They'll also be distributing free recycling bags for multifamily dwelling units, which is basically just a best management practice to encourage multifamily dwelling customers to recycle. The new agreement also anticipates route growth with the additional development in the city. The increase in routes from 6.5 currently to 7. And it has flexibility for recycling processing. It can be secured by either Recology or the city. This table basically shows a summary of the current base compensation, July 1, 2019. The first 3 years of the agreement are negotiated compensation increases. So Over the first 3 years of the agreement, it goes from a base of $4.54 per month per residence, all the way up to 6.48%. We're also switching to a fixed base compensation payment schedule, so that this is basically a summary of the annual amount that we would be paying Recology for recycling services. It would get adjusted annually based on growth. And then after the first 3 years of the agreement, the base compensation would still be adjusted annually for growth, but it would also be adjusted with the water sewer trash index CPI, which is different than the San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward CPI that's currently based off. It's capped at a maximum of 5%, and it has a floor of 2%. So this is the water sewer trash index is more in line with the costs of doing business in the solid waste industry. As far as impacts to customer rates, our customers are currently paying $4.40 per month for curbside recycling services. Over the first 3 years of the negotiated increases, we're projecting that they'll be paying $6.34. The increase in compensation to Recology would be folded into customer rates. Staff really believes that this is still a very good value in terms of a contract for the city. We've looked at recent proposals for similar residential curbside recycling services, and then we also compared it to our 2008 RFP results to see if we were to increase all the proposers from 2008 just based on our CPI adjustment, what it would look like. And this is what it looks like, including just a 5% adjustment for the China National Sword. So we would be paying $6.48 after the first 3 years of the agreement. The bars in red represent what competitors' bids from proposals from 2008 would be in today's dollars. So you can see that our current proposed agreement compares favorably to those. And then the two black bars are comparisons to other agencies that have recently have new recycling contracts in place. $10.75 per month for the South Bay Waste Management Authority, and then San Jose at $15.50 per month. So we believe that this is a very good value for the city. So in summary, the city has benefited from favorable pricing since 2008 under the current agreement. Residents really won't see any changes to their services, although they will see a rate increase. The estimated rate increases were predictable and unavoidable due to current conditions. And in summary, the agreement is a good deal for the city. So with that, we're asking for a recommendation to authorize the city manager to approve an agreement with Recology, and authorize the city manager to make modifications to the agreement if necessary.
Thank you very much, Dave. Let's see if there's questions from the council. We have Vice Mayor Mahan.
Thank you. This contract does not include a prevailing wage provision because this is just for hauling and collection. Is that right?
I'll defer to the city attorney for this one.
This particular contract is not subject to the labor code sections on prevailing wage.
And why is that?
It doesn't fit within any of the definitions requiring prevailing wage under the labor code.
And is that because it's just for hauling and collection?
It's not, I don't know about just because, but it's hauling and collection under this agreement are not subject to the labor code.
I understand that hauling and collection is not, but utility facilities can be under the most recent cases that has come down.
If you're referring to the Kanana case, I'm not sure.
Ka'ana'ana.
Ka'anana, yeah, I'm not sure how to say that. And under that case, that case was a case brought against a contractor for a sanitation district in the county of Los Angeles. And the labor code has a specific section under, if I can read it to you, Labor Code Section 1720, subdivision A2 specifically defines public works that are subject to prevailing wage as work done for irrigation, utility, reclamation, and improvement districts and other districts of this type. So that was the reason under that case, the court in the Second District Court of Appeal found that the recyclable sorting work under that case was subject to prevailing wage, and that was specifically because that was a county sanitation district that was issuing the contract. So that provision would not apply to the city of Santa Clara.
Again, I understand that for this contract, it wouldn't, because this contractor is doing its own hauling and collection.
I'm
Our
not sure that
contract is
if you're
for
doing hauling
and collection, not just sorting, right?
Well, no, I'm not sure whether a hauling and collection contract that's for a sanitation district might fit under this definition as well. But if you're referring to this case specifically only applies prevailing wage to contracts issued by sanitation districts.
No, it doesn't, but we can argue about that. But
well, you're wrong, council member. I'm the city attorney, and I'm reading the case directly, and
I
that's
read
exactly
the case
what the
thoroughly
case
as
held.
well. Okay, well, as I say, I think I differentiate this one because it's hauling and collection, and we're contracting them for hauling and collection. It's not a utility contract per se. It's a garbage collection contract, the way I understand this contract, and I just want to make sure my understanding of this contract is correct, and that's why there's no prevailing wage provision in it.
This contract is not subject to state prevailing wage law, correct?
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other council members? Thank you, Dave. Seeing none, I have a card from the audience. John Bouchard, if you'd like to come forward, please. Good evening.
Vice Mayor and council members, thank you for your time. My name is John Bouchard. I'm Secretary Treasurer of Teamsters Local 350, and we represent all the garbage and recycling workers in Santa Clara County, with the exception of Green Waste, who's aggressively anti-union. So I want to thank you for renewing the contract with Recology on behalf of our members who work for Recology here in Santa Clara. But we do have a concern about the lack of prevailing wage language in the contract, particularly under Section 9D Labor Code, which says that the processing facility is not subject to prevailing wage. Aside from the legalities of it, not including prevailing wage in these municipal contracts creates a dangerous precedent because it allows for these companies to come in and severely underbid these contracts, which drives down costs at the expense of exploited workers, which is currently the case at Green Waste right now. So we are fully supportive of renewing the contract with Recology. They're a good union company. We do have concerns, however, about the lack of the prevailing wage language. We all know, it's very difficult to live in the Bay Area right now, and the lack of prevailing wage language makes it even harder for the workers that are processing the materials that are being collected and hauled from your city. And it, like I said, it creates a dangerous precedent, and it's really a race to the bottom instead of trying to uplift these workers, which in turn helps the economy of your city because those workers spend their money in your city. So it's a dangerous precedent, and I would ask that you make the one change in that contract that under 9D that they are subject to the prevailing wage. Thank you for your time, and again, thank you for renewing the contract with Recology.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, please come forward.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Take my my comments here. I didn't know this was going to be on the agenda, but I have to comment on Recology. I'm not happy as a customer with the service they're giving us. And this is my experience in the last several years. And I've called them and asked them to slow down on the street. They're driving 35 miles an hour down my city street, and you can barely get 2 cars parallel with it. They're extremely noisy because of lack of maintenance on the trucks, such as brakes are squealing, starting, stopping. They're skidding to a stop in front of the neighborhoods using what they call the handbrake. They're going excessively fast in a very dangerous way with excessively heavy equipment. You wouldn't find this on a job site anywhere. They're using this heavy equipment in such a way it's hazardous to our neighborhood. It's in the morning, so we're not getting, the children in the streets. So but they're going too fast. Their trucks are not maintained, and they're filthy, dirty trucks. They never get washed. It's actually washed. I'm sorry. So I just really recommend that we get, as a city, get the most out of them. If you're going to give them a contract, let's tighten up the contract. They're leaving early, too. They're coming to my neighborhood at 6:30 in the morning, 6:45. They're not supposed to start until 7, and they're getting there early. They do that because the contract, they're labor union guys, and they're only paid for when they do the job. They can get 8 hours of work in 4 hours, they're out of there. So the faster they do the job, and that's what's creating the problem. So that needs to be tightened up as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward. Okay, is there a motion to close public hearing? So moved. Motion to close public hearing, and second? Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Dave. Could you answer any of the comments that were made by the last speaker about the, not coming on time, dirty trucks, driving too fast, all those types of things? What provisions do we have in the contract for those types of conditions of operation?
So as far as missed collections, there are penalties for missed collections. We encourage residents to contact Recology, but also the Public Works Department, so we can have a log of issues that are going on. It's challenging for us to enforce any of the liquidated damages clauses in the agreement if we're not hearing about it. If there's on a specific day at an address, if we have that information on hand, we can work with Recology to identify which collection vehicle and which driver is operating, if they're operating in an unsafe manner, and we can work it out with Recology directly. But the important thing is we need to know about it when it happens.
What about the provisions for truck maintenance and those?
So within the agreement, there are provisions that they maintain their trucks. They have to be painted. There's age requirements for how old the trucks that they can have, as well as also their toters need to be in good working order. So there are provisions in the agreement that cover the collection vehicles and equipment as well.
Is there any time period or any type of intervals during the contract where the city does inspect or check from the provider on the maintenance of the trucks, or through their documentation or anything like that, that we would check that?
It's not something that we've done in the past, but within the contract, we could ask for to see a list of their equipment and what the
Their
age
maintenance
is.
records and other things. Is that city manager, is that something we can do? Because that would be important.
I think we could at least send them a communication that we have received resident complaints and ask them how they'd like to proceed. I don't know that we can mandate it through the contracts, but certainly bringing it to their attention and what our expectations are, I think would help.
And they're purchasing new collection vehicles, at the outset of the
Oh,
agreement.
they are purchasing new, I saw that, but I didn't know how many and,
The whole fleet is
oh,
turning over.
the whole fleet would be new.
Yeah,
Is the biodiesel?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions of Dave, Councilmember Hardy?
I wanted to follow up on Vice Mayor Mahan's question about the labor code. So it clearly says that it will not apply unless the laws change, and that is 9D. Is that why we receive a better cost? Is that why San Jose's is higher? What would be the change if we asked for prevailing wage?
So Recology is currently paying above prevailing wage for their drivers as far as the way our contract's set up currently, and for the first 3 years of the agreement, Recology can take the recyclables to any processor that they choose. They've currently chosen green waste recovery. As far as what the difference is in terms of what they would be paying green waste recovery versus another material recovery facility, I don't know what the cost difference is on the processing on that end. It may or may not go up. We have our consultant, Garth, with R3. I don't know if you have any additional information on that.
The way I understand it, if the council were to make a determination that there should be prevailing wage applied to, say, materials recovery facility processing, there would have to be a process and a calculation to even determine what that is, because it's not covered under the current labor code. So there's not an existing list out there that says this is what the prevailing wage for that in this county would be, because it doesn't exist right now. So there would have to be some determination of that, which means we can't answer the question at this point in time. There would probably be some impact. We don't know what it would be.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other, Vice Mayor Mahan and then Councilmember Davis?
Thank you. I just want to understand one point you just made. So Recology contracts itself to whatever recycling center it brings the materials to, and can that change? They don't need our approval to change their recycling plant, so to speak.
So under the 2008 agreement, once Recology picks up the recyclables at the curb, the commodities in that container become their property to market, and they can take it anywhere that they want. Under the new agreement, the city can direct recyclables to another facility. The city's also is taking on the risk of the commodity values. So it is a change from the current agreement to what the future agreement will be.
So what does that mean, that the city can direct? Does it mean we have to, or we will, or what does that mean?
It's at the city's option. If we believe that there's a better alternative out there to direct it, or to direct the recyclables, if we believe that we can get a better price or lock in future processing capacity, because we're concerned, with the China National Sword, that maybe these processing markets are drying up. We may want to lock in our own long-term deal ourselves if we have that opportunity. But it's just additional flexibility.
So whose choice is it at this point in time to use green waste recovery?
At this point in time, it's Recology's.
Okay, so that makes a difference to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dave. I think you clarified a few things that were going on up here, but I would like to make a motion to approve staff recommendation 1, 2, and 3. And city clerk, do I need to read all this, or you can take staff recommendation? Okay, thank you.
Motion and second. Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just looking at the agreement, and I noticed within the document itself, there is a section regarding liquidated damages. And is that what we would use, the city would use in terms of like what Mr. Freed has talked about, them coming, before the 7 o'clock in the morning? I mean, it looks like there's a damage of $500 per incident. I mean, how would the city go about like enforcing something like that? I mean, is it up to like the resident to report it, or what would we do?
So yes, there is the liquidated damages clause. So typically what we do, mistakes will happen, staff understands that. So typically within a 1-year period at the same residence, if there's we get notification of the first notice, we're gonna try and work with the hauler to work it out. And then, the second one will be more of a stern notice that if we get notified anytime within the next 1-year period of a similar violation occurring at this location, we're going to start applying the liquidated damages. So, it's essentially on the third offense is when we would apply the liquidated damages.
Great. And these are like incidents that people could even submit through My Santa Clara, for instance?
That's correct.
Good, good. Okay. Okay, great. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we have a motion and second. Are there any other comments for staff recommendation? Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Dave, as well, for that. All right, next we have okay. Action on substation service agreement with Related Santa Clara LLC for the Esperanza substation. Welcome,
Thank
Director
you,
of
Mayor.
Electric Utility.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. A pleasure to be here tonight to discuss with you the substation service agreement with Related Santa Clara for the Esperanza substation, which is, of course, is a key component of the related development as we move forward. From a little background perspective, the development agreement actually called for the construction of the substation, including 27 MVA, which was for the related development. On the right, you see a picture of where the station's going, which is in our existing northern receiving station next to Levi Stadium. The city will be responsible for designing, procuring, installing, constructing, fabricating, and inspecting the facility. And currently, we have a project estimate of approximately $21.2 million. And of that, Related is going to be paying a prorated cost, and their current estimate's about $9.7 million. We have 4 payment milestones in the agreement. If you approve the agreement today, the first payment milestone will be within 30 days of execution of the agreement. Then we have one for the procurement of contract, another one for the construction contract, and finally, a final invoice to true up costs. It's important to note that those are just project estimates. Ultimately, our costs and related costs are going to be based on the actual cost associated with the design and construction. The scope of work is comprehensive. It includes the control building, the circuit breakers, switchgear, and 2 substation transformers. And our goal is to have the facility online by the 4th quarter of 2022. We're currently in the project scoping phase. It's a significant benefit. As I mentioned, it's a key component of the Related Santa Clara development. And in addition to that, it allows us for additional load growth in north of Bayshore. So with that in mind, staff recommends approving the substation service agreement. And also because a lot of these components are long-term components, take a long time to order, delegating authority to the city manager to approve long lead time material procurements agreements and purchase orders. That concludes staff presentation, available for any comments or questions.
I have a question. So the Related project, City Place, will take up about 40% of the load of this. And then, so we'll have about 60% left for other projects in North Santa Clara?
That's correct. So it's additional capacity and growth in North Santa Clara as well. And then I know we are talking to Related about any of future needs they might need as well.
Okay.
So we're aware that they might have future needs above that, and we'll work with them to make sure they have the power that they need.
Is that 40% for the entire City Place project or just for the first phase?
My understanding is not for the entire project. There'll be additional power needs later on as part of the process, and they made us aware of that. And we'll work with them through the process as part of it. In addition to that, during construction of the substation, we also have a commitment in the substation agreement that will provide 9 NVA if the facility is not constructed yet and they need that power. So we have an interim alignment. We know we have the substation, and ultimately we probably will need more power for them as well, and we're prepared to provide that.
So you're comfortable that this is big enough to take on that project and other projects?
Well, I am comfortable that this is big enough as we move forward the process. I think it's important to note that the next presentation I'm going to be doing for you talks about our capital program and $250 million in projects and the growth that we want to go from a 750 megawatt peak to 1,000 megawatt peak. So there's a much bigger picture associated with the ultimate growth beyond this substation.
All right, I'll be interested in that. Thank you so much. Councilmember Davis and then Shahal.
Thank you. I know that it's not color-coded, but it's good. So, my same questions were about the phasing. Is this for phase 1 and then phase? So you answered all that question. So, Mayor, I would actually like to make a motion for staff recommendation.
Okay, is motion second? Thank you. Councilmember Chahal.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have the same follow-up question on that. Like, right now, we are dedicating 27 MVA to related project, right? In case they take more than 27 for whole of their project, so they will be contributing accordingly down the line, like right now 9 million versus 21. So if they take more than 27, let's say they reach 60%, would they be paying another 60% of the 21 then?
No, the agreement is for this specific substation and construction of the substation. Ultimately, like any business, resident, or development, we want to be able to provide power to them. In this case, they're contributing to the substation to have that 27 MVA set aside specifically for the project. And that set aside is a simplified way of putting it. But this is specifically to this construction of the substation. If they have additional power needs, we'll kind of work through that as we would with any other development that's not building a substation on their own.
No, I'm not talking about any other development. Within this development, let's say they need more than 27 within related development only. So at that time, would they be paying proportionately their share accordingly? Right now,
No. If this is for this substation only, if at some point they needed construction of another substation.
No. This substation is 63 something, right?
Yes.
So out of the 63, we are right now dedicating only 27 MVA, right?
That's correct.
Comes up to be around 40+%, right? But let's say, assuming their power needs increase from 27 megawatt amps to, say, 35 megawatt per amps, right? So would they be paying that proportionate charges to us like they are paying as per the 40%?
No. So when you look at the substation, they will not be required to pay more towards the substation, but they are required to pay all the load development fees. So the substation is set at the 42%, and they're still required to pay load development fees as related to the development agreement, as well as any other fees that we have. So that's specified in the DA.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. Manuel, based on, setting aside related and the anticipated growth out in the north side, if there was a need to add to this substation, is there room to add to the substation or?
I don't know. There is? Okay. So looking in the back, a lot of them we put extra banks for capacity. I wasn't sure of the design if we had it, and it sounds like there's additional room to add to it.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions from the council. Maybe we can go to the public to see if there's, we have no cards. If anyone would like to make any comments on this from the public, please come forward. All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second for the staff recommendation for approval. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you for that report. Oh, you're back. Okay.
I'm back.
Next.
The report we've been waiting for.
So I,
Next, consideration of Silicon Valley Power quarterly strategic planning update. Okay, here we
great.
go.
So I had 3 slides in the other one. I can tell you this one's not 3 slides. So it's going to be a little longer than
We'll
that.
give you 6, and that's
6.
it.
I'm
Okay.
gonna take a few more, but I do have part of the team here. Ann and Kevin are here, and Alan might be joining us later. Chris had something that had to attend at the last minute, but hopefully, we do have everybody here who can answer all your questions for you. So this is our quarterly strategic plan update. And from an agenda perspective, this one's going to be a little different than the last few ones that we did for you, in the fact that I'm going to talk very briefly about the strategic plan and our project load growth. But really my focus today is just to give you an idea of where we're at on infrastructure and capital projects. We also have a major project happening at DVR, which is our major maintenance project, and then finish off with just some updates on where we're at on electrical vehicle charging. I had a last-minute ad. As we all know, we had quite a weekend this weekend from an SVP and other city staff perspective. I had one slide at the end, which is what I'm going to finish the presentation with. This is a roadmap you've seen before. Brought it up again, not going to get into a high level of detail, but just to highlight once again that for all the activities we're supposed to be doing in the first 2 years, those are either completed or in progress. And as I mentioned before, we're actually active in some activities that were happening in year 2 and 3. The next quarterly update will give you a little more detail on it. From a historic load growth perspective, another one that you've seen before, but I think it's always important to highlight that you've seen the type of growth that SVP has had since the early 2000s and where we're at today. And it's been pretty much flat for the last 2 years or so, but we had a little bump over the previous year. But we're in pretty good shape when you consider the overall trajectory over the last few years. So jump into the infrastructure, and that's really wanted to kind of change it a little bit and talk about that. Not going to go through every bullet point here, but I think it's always important to highlight how much infrastructure we have, how much we own, and how much we have to maintain and operate. And you're talking about substations. We're adding one more, but we currently have 24 substations and 4 system connection stations. You can see the number of miles that we have on power lines, what's underground, what's above ground, number of feeders. And then we also have our 11,000 power poles. We have 5,700 transformers, a lot of meters, a lot of light poles, and of course, our fiber program, which makes revenue for the city. From an electric system improvement perspective, our peak capacity rating as of 2019 is about 750 megawatts. If you remember from about 6 months ago, we actually presented to you that we reached a new peak. We're almost at 600 back in June of this year. And really what we're planning for when we're looking at additional growth is 1,000 megawatts projected demand in 10 years. So that's the peak that we want to be able to achieve in a 10-year time frame. We're looking at expanding receiving stations with larger transformers, and we're also actually analyzing new transmission connections between our receiving stations to make sure we can manage that load. So where's the load growth coming from? It comes from data centers, commercial, residential, and development overall. We talked about Esperanza today. So that's the 63 megawatt substation. You're going to be seeing Oaks Junction. In 2 weeks, it's going to be coming to you. That's a 27 megawatt. And in early 2020, you're going to have 2 more substations coming to you, Laurelwood and San Tomas, each about 100 megawatts. Now, those are very big numbers, and they're very exciting. I do want to highlight that's not always new power. Sometimes it gets transferred from one location to another. And in many cases, because these are data centers, it does take a while to build up to it. And in some cases, we are building an extra capacity that doesn't get used up immediately. But I think it does show the level of growth that we're expecting. And to be able to accommodate that growth, in addition to what we do with our development partners, we have a capital project that you approve, and we're looking at about a $250 million program right now. So one of the key things we did, we sat down with the management team and kind of determined what our priorities would be. And when we looked at the level of growth that we want to have over the next 10 years, $250 million worth of projects, what we determined is we really need to sit down and do something that we really haven't done before and fully understand how we need to prioritize those projects and needs to make sure we can accommodate our future expansion and continue the reliability that we have today. So really what that means is, how do we look at that $250 million, all the projects that we need to do, and how can we manage to do them in the best way, most efficient way possible, and in what order to make sure that we are achieving our future goals for growth. So what we're doing is we're releasing a statement of qualifications from a consultant to help us support the implementation of that program. That should be out in the next 2 weeks. And really what they're going to do is prepare a system expansion plan. How do we want to expand? And kind of really take a strategic look at it instead of doing it project by project. And that's going to look at system planning, substation and transmission line development, the load development cost, and because of the amount of work, we're also looking at the opportunity that we might need some project management support. So we're pretty excited about this going out. Out of the 5 strategic priorities that we came up with, this was the #1 priority by the management team. Of course, work doesn't stop while we wait for the SOQ. This is a graph I showed you before. It gives you a perspective on a lot of the projects that we're working on. It shows you how busy you are from a system growth perspective, replacement perspective, data center growth, and new development. And as you see in the bottom, we shared with you before, we have 7 additional substations that are also under discussion. So we don't know if they're going to happen, not going to happen. Gives you a perspective that Santa Clara is still the place to be. And then on that, I wanted to just highlight for you just a few of the projects, that we're currently working on that staff's really focused on. One is the South Loop project. So the South Loop project is expected to be in place by 2021. And it's actually a fairly significant project, installing 80 new poles and 2.3 miles of new transmission lines. About a $24 million project. Today's estimates, those will probably change. And it's very significant for us because it increases system capacity by adding those 60 kV lines. But also, we are going to have a loop system redundancy once that line's in place, which is going to be really much better for our reliability. We're really highly reliable, but it's going to increase it. We're looking at starting construction in late 2020. Where we're at this point, the key part is we have to acquire a lot of minor, small easements because of all the new poles that are going in, and we're currently going through that process. We have the Sarah substation reconstruction. We're replacing a single bank with 2 20 MVA banks, new switchgear and control room. It's about a $22 million project, and we're actually currently putting the bidding package together. So that's actively moving forward. We're looking at starting construction in early 2020, and this also does 2 things for us, right? It replaces all the aging equipment that's out there to improve reliability, and we are putting additional capacity to meet future load growth. Another substation that we're also working on is our Homestead substation reconstruction. This one can't happen until Sarah's done. That's why you see that the dates, we can't have them both out at the same time. This one is also replacing equipment that's 45 years old. And we're able to also add additional equipment for capacity. Current budget's $25 million. Of course, we're looking at bidding that out and starting construction somewhere in 2022. So we'll keep updating the numbers as we go forward. Once again, the benefits are replacing the aging equipment. That improves reliability, and we're also adding 1 more transformer, which is accommodating growth. So you can see every time we do this, we're very focused on improving reliability with every project that we do. But on top of that, we always take the opportunity to see if we can place additional equipment that can also accommodate some of the future growth that we're talking about. So just in those 3 slides, I described to you about $75 million worth of work that was currently under design in the city. The other project I want to talk about is our DVR maintenance outage and improvement project. That project currently DVRs, it's an outage, it's shut down, we're not running it. And we had it scheduled from October to December. We're going to have to extend it a little bit. I'll get into the details of that. It's about a $7.5 million project, and it's a very comprehensive project, and it's pretty exciting. We got support from companies from all over the world to get this done. The major work efforts are the steam turbine and generator, getting their inspection and overhaul. We're doing a gas turbine maintenance and swap. If you don't know, we have 2 gas turbines out there that function, and then we have a 3rd one that's a backup, so we sending those for their maintenance. Very exciting piece, which I'm going to get into more detail, is our control system replacement, which is now obsolete. It's getting fully replaced. We're updating our monitoring equipment for air emissions. And lastly, important to highlight that the work that's happening as part of this outage is the equivalent of 200 work orders or so. So we're getting a lot done. It's a shutdown that's shut down for a period of time, but a lot of work's getting done. Talking about this distributed control system replacement, talking to the staff out at DVR, been out there a few times, very excited because it replaces multiple obsolete and unsupported control systems. And a key component of that is spare parts are no longer available for the systems that we had in place. So in some cases, we had to go find things when we needed to replace them. And we're able to standardize into one platform and spare parts. Very exciting. It's going to improve dependability and redundancy. We're going to have better and fine-tuned emissions equipment. And of course, we always want to improve our compliance with next security standards. On the right, and I do have a bunch of pictures coming up for you, you can see our new turbine control panel, our new control room, and also our control system remote panel. So you can just kind of see the type of work that's happening. Next couple slides, just to show you some pictures of the work that's been occurring out there. It's very significant work. You can see our steam turbine casing being flipped. We had 2 cranes working at the same time. Our gas turbine removal, our emissions probe work, and picture there is with me and Chet. I wanted to make sure he was on the presentation, but he wouldn't appear if I wasn't on the picture, so there we are. He's our acting division manager out there. Work has been occurring 24/7, so we had crews working 24 hours a day. The one on the right is our generator rotor removal, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. And then, of course, on the far bottom right, you always have to end any of these presentations with a selfie. So wanted to finish it with a selfie for you of one of our staff workers who's been working out at DVR. So there, it's interesting. Whenever you work on a facility that's existing or older, you're always going to come and find unexpected facilities. Now, this is my first power plant, but I have opened up many old buildings in the past. And anything you expect, you'll find, and anything you don't expect, you'll find. And happy to say that most of the unexpected issues have been addressed, and we've done them. But we have one item with a steam turbine generator stator, which is the picture on the top right, which is the coolest picture of all that I think we have, is the one where we found the unexpected item that kind of we have to deal with and we have to continue to deal with. Staff has been working nonstop to review options for this. We brought in additional consultants, additional hours, to really find a safe, fast, effective way to address some of the hot spots we found that weren't supposed to be there, but really allow us to turn DVR back on as quickly as possible because we want to have the facility running. And really at this point, we have developed multiple options. I had a number of meetings. Me and Kevin were out there a number of times. We have near-terms, what we think are near-term solutions so we can get the facility back on track, and long-term options to really address the issue for the long term of the facility. I want to highlight that to that level just because we do have a council action coming to you on December 10th to authorize the city manager to execute future contracts associated with the near-term solution that we have to turn the facility back on and long-term solutions of how we're going to address the generator stator, whether it's replacing it, fixing it, whatever that might be. Our goal is to finish all the work that we need to do and start the facility back in mid-January. Before I get to the EV charging stations, I do have to tell you that the amount of work that's happened on DVR, it's incredible. It took months and months and months of planning, and dealing with the unexpected issues, while it has been difficult, I think it's been a pleasure to observe staff just stepping up and working the extra hours to come up with the near-term and long-term solutions, working the consultants and the contractors. So I do want to highlight Kevin, who's back there. Chris, he's Carwick, who's our assistant director, couldn't be here today, and also Chet Manchester, Alex Price, Alan Nagatap, and David Whites, who are staff members. There's a lot more people who worked on it, but they have been really involved day to day, involved 24/7, and work on the solutions to get this work done. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted them because they really deserve kudos for the additional work that they've been doing. Changing from DVR, I want to talk about electric vehicles. And as I mentioned last time, we put out an RFP to do more charging stations. We're going to add about 36 public charging ports in 2020. That's what we're looking for next year. And our 5-year forecast is about 100 charging ports, over 100 charging ports, so it's significant. The current budget's about 1.25 million. We'll need more money than that if we want to get to the over 100. And pretty excited. I haven't looked at them yet. Alan has all of them. The RFP closed on November 13th, and we actually got 7 proposals. We weren't sure how many we were going to get. The great part of this is I think we can start construction sometime in early 2020. Of course, you'll see the agreement is going to come to council for your approval. And I'm very excited because, as you know, we do have a new city green fleet, and we need the infrastructure in place so we can start buying electric vehicles. So this is the first step to really implementing that city green fleet. In addition to that, this is going to expand EV access throughout the city. We also have a EV incentive program that we're working on. It's using $4 million from SVP restricted funds and CEC money. We're looking at launching that program in mid-2020, and we'll provide updates for you, whether it's to the city manager's blog, as well as the outreach that we normally do when we have a new program in place to make sure everybody's aware of it. And really our goal on that one is to expand EV charging stations for multi-unit dwellings, workplace, and public access locations. And lastly, our Clean Fuel Rewards Program rebates. Target launch is spring, summer 2020. And the goal here is to simplify the rebate process for the customer to make it easier for people to access clean vehicles. So that's my full presentation. I did add one more slide for the work that the crews and some of the other staff did this weekend. First of all, I highlighted some of the feedback that we got. The staff did an amazing work communicating through Twitter, letting people know through the night what was happening. And generally, we had about 17 instances of power outages. Most of them were resolved very quickly. Some of them were not. In some cases, we had to, picture on the right, we had to work with a contractor. That's a private development. We also had to wait for PG&E. And I do have to say, I was very thankful of the community that even though in some cases we couldn't come back right away, our communication, seeing the crews out there doing all the work we did, we got a lot of positive feedback. And you can see some of the comments out there, great service and response, stay safe, way faster than I thought, appreciate your hard work. And this is just a sampling of the overall feedback we got, and a lot more feedback just on the fact that even though some of the outages extended because of things out of our control, just being able to communicate with them. In addition, the Santa Clara Weekly, actually just today, did an article. We had a quote from before just saying what a amazing work staff did on Twitter to keep communicating with the neighborhoods. So I'm going to take the time here because there were a lot of people who worked through the Thanksgiving holiday. In some cases, we had people working through the night. In some cases, working multiple days on different days to the night during the holiday to make sure that we could get power back on track for our residents and in not the best conditions. So from a customer engagement perspective, I want to thank Kathleen Hughes, Gwen Goodman, and Mary Medeiros McEnroe. Our control room, we had 2 staff members during the day who were out there, Lori Mellor-Zarago and Jay Aguilar. And at night, all those 4 nights was the same person, Kurt Tomorrow. And then, of course, we had our field crews, and it varied quite a bit from our troubleshooters to the transmission and distribution workers. Lincoln Gordon, Dave Padilla, Jesse Delgado, Jesse Merle, Charles Bankston, Matthew Elliott, Michael Sanchez, Larry Orlando, Nathan Richmond, Bulmaro Tapia Lopez, Josh Slaswick, Thomas McCullough, Andrew Nagel, David Coates, Gabriel Sosa. And a couple of the council members were nice enough to give me kudos for the work that was done over the weekend under a difficult situation. And for me, I appreciate it, but it was very important to be able to kind of thank the people who were out there doing the work, skipping their holiday weekend to make sure we got power back on track. And I appreciate you allowing me the time to be able to name them by name, and I'm sure they'll appreciate that they're getting those kudos at the council meeting. So with that concludes my presentation, and we recommend note and filing our quarterly strategic plan update.
Thank you, Manuel. That's an excellent report. Before we go to all the questions and everything, I just wanted to make a comment about your last slide about what happened over the weekend and during the holidays and everything with those storms. And there's been a lot of lot of talk lately about PG&E and outages and everything else, but I'll tell you the way Silicon Valley Power responds when there's outages and issues is just a cut above everything. I mean, it's just incredible, the communication with the community and the trust that the community has in Silicon Valley Power. I didn't see my comment up there. I was making comments on Twitter because my power went out for a couple hours, and it just shows how it's such a rare occasion when our power goes out in the city of Santa Clara. It really showed how unprepared I was when the power went out. I found a little tiny flashlight but immediately I went online to find out what was happening, and sure enough, there it was. And the constant updates, and people in the community really appreciate that. And because you want to know what's happening, kind of is there an idea when it's going to go back on? But just reading the community comments about how the feelings that, and again, the trust and the reliability of Silicon Valley Power for our community has just been incredible. So the people that worked, especially the boots on the ground, the people that you talked about, the people in your communications department, like everyone from top to bottom, it's just such a class act with Silicon Valley Power, and how you weathered the storm for us in those situations is just really incredible. And I don't know how we can repay you and thank you and the Silicon Valley Department for the work that's done. We'll probably think of something, but it's just incredible how the response to our community and the gratefulness that we all have, that I hope you can or we can somehow communicate to the department how wonderful they are and how much we appreciate everything for Silicon Valley Power and our electric provider. And we're so happy that we don't have PG&E. So,
And Mayor, I will tell you
Yes.
that I do have an all-hands meeting coming up on the 10th, and I'll make sure to highlight your comments also. We also have our holiday luncheon coming up on the 19th. And I'll
maybe
make
we
sure to
can do
highlight your
something.
comments on that as
Okay.
well. And I did see your tweet, by the way.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to say at 2:30 in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning when I was asleep and all the lights came back on, I went, yay, okay.
I was
All
going to
right.
suggest that we can play
Yes.
your expression of gratitude right now.
Or
because
maybe
the
we
video is
can send something or bring something to that, because really, I mean, the sacrifices that everybody's made is just, incredible on behalf of our community. So I'm going to go down the line, Debbie Davis and then Councilmember Hardy. Debbie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I was actually thinking about giving them their Thanksgiving dinner again because they kind of missed it. And I know she didn't have power because she goes, "Do you have power?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do," because Manuel likes me. Maybe not you, but that's okay. And I wanted to thank you because I know Councilmember O'Neill with just the charging stations alone and the fleet changing over to green. I mean, this is very big for Santa Clara. So I wanted to thank you for putting that in there and prioritizing what we need to do going forward. So I think this was an excellent report. You are just way too happy. And Ann Hatcher, he didn't call you out, but you do a great job too. Kevin, you're the best. We love you. We have good time. But I got to say, just the quality of, of our life in the city of Santa Clara, like the mayor said, we don't have PG&E. And I think that's why everybody's moving here, because they have power. So it's a good thing. But thank you for the comprehensive report. I think it's great. I look forward to next week and approving a lot of different things and get you started rocking and rolling. So I would love to just note and file this.
Is that a motion?
Thank you. That's a motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Hart, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and there's second. Councilmember Hardy?
Well, obviously, I want to echo that, and the fact that I was watching 4 grandchildren and their grandparents, the other grandparents in San Jose whose power went out, they were glad that I had the kids and not them. And I said, that's why I live in Santa Clara. Thank you. And we'll have to get the mayor a larger flashlight for the next. Maybe that can be on her wish list. Because we all know through emergency preparedness, we're supposed to have something around close. But maybe we do get complacent because we appreciate so much that our power is on most of the time. I was curious if there was any way on the charging stations we do have, if we have noticed, is there any way that we're able to tell if they're the use is increasing? I was just curious, because when they first went in, I felt like nobody was using them, but I do see them being used much more now. The other question I had was over the distributed control system replacement for DVR. How old is that power company? I was just curious from an engineering point of view.
Yeah, so the control system is part of the original construction
Yeah.
of DVR, like 83? I mean, 2005. I meant to say 2003, but it's actually 2005, so about 15 years.
2005,
Yeah.
which tells you how quickly things get outdated around here, especially with electronics, because I seem to remember approving that when I was on the planning commission. I thought, the system's already
You know,
outdated.
yeah, if you buy any electronics, you know how that
Yeah,
goes. And
yeah. By the time you get home, it's outdated.
yeah. On the electric vehicles, you know, that's one thing we can look at as part of the new charging stations. I know with some of the current ones, they're a little older, there's some limitations. We had some issues with some of them not working at this point. We'll see what data we have.
Okay.
But it's something data is very important to us. So as we're looking at these RFPs, and making a selection on who we want to use, we can take a look at how we look at data and kind of what the growth is over the
How
years.
they're being used, how the changes, and where we want to expand, where it makes the most sense. Thank you so much, and tell them we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Mahan?
Yes, thank you. I do want to thank you also personally, because Silicon Valley Power always does an outstanding job, but this stormy Thanksgiving weekend was probably put everyone to the test, and everyone involved responded outstandingly. It was just amazing. My sister was out without power, but just for a little while. It was surprising how quickly the power went back on, considering the circumstances. And to me, it's just one example of how Silicon Valley Power really becomes part of our public safety, because when you're talking about not having power in a storm like that, it is a matter of quality of life and public safety, and Silicon Valley Power responded overwhelmingly wonderfully. Silicon Valley Power has always been an economic engine for the city of Santa Clara. You've always been in the vanguard, on the leading edge of technology, and using all of the latest and greatest ideas about how to deliver public power to our residents, to our users, a leader in not only generation, but transmission and distribution. And this report just highlights that, and highlights all of the new enterprises that you're going to be undertaking, and I commend you for that. I think Silicon Valley Power is obviously a star among public power, probably give you an energy star, but we thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Councilmember Chahal?
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to second all the thoughts about such a great service you're providing, and thank each one of the employees over there who provided. And more thanks for the power at my house didn't go, and thanks for restoring Mayor's power. Two thanks for that. And I have a couple of questions, like although we are targeting 2,000 megawatts, so what is our current capacity, 700 something?
That's correct. I'll go back to, see if I can go back to the slide here.
750?
750.
750.
And that's our peak rating, so just want to separate that. That's a little differently than capacity, but that's our peak capacity rating in 2019, 750, and we're planning for 1,000 in 10 years. So that's for peak.
So can you throw some more light on, on the generation part of it, how we are targeting generation of 1,000 megawatt during those next 10 years?
Yeah, so there's different strategies. As you know, we have our own generation that we wholly own, like DVR, and we also own, for example, some hydro plants in Northern California. We have all our partnerships with NCPA, where we also have generation as part of that process, and we have other partnerships as well. If you look at what we've done over the last 5 years, and I'm going to look at Ann to make sure to correct me if I'm wrong, we've entered into different power purchase agreements, about 300 megawatts of either hydro or solar power. So we are actively looking for power at all times, whether it's for additional capacity to meet our renewable energy goals. So this is an active thing that we do on a daily basis. Right now, we're looking at other PPAs and other long-term agreements with other providers as well. So we continue to do that on a regular basis, and we're always looking at additional. Another example is our contracts with WAPA, which are 30-year contracts. We're looking at extending those, and that provides additional capacity as well. So it's a multitude of things. There's not like one element, and we have many goals, right? We want to get to where we want to be in 10 years. Then we have our California goals for renewable energy. Then we have our own goals as part of the Climate Action Plan, and those are going to be updated. So we're trying to like fit all those puzzles, and Anne and her group are always doing something on a daily basis to try to find the right mix of power for the city.
So out of the 250 million investment we are trying to make into, most of it is within the city for stations, right? So what component of that is in the generation part of it, or more of the generation will be buying from the other sources? Is there a component we are talking about capital investment into generation, our own generation?
This 250 million is related to capital investment for our facilities. It's not for power purchase. That we look at that differently.
Right.
The 250 million specific to things that we need to do in our area to be reliable and increase capacity, like the substations.
Right, substation, right. So we don't have we did not budget anything for generating our own future power, or we are depending on buying power from other sources, basically.
We always have the option, right? We have a certain amount of funds that we do for power purchases. I know with NCPA, they're always looking at opportunities. We're also looking at things like battery storage, which is not necessarily buying new power, but storing power that you already have so you can release it at different times. So I wouldn't say we're not. I would just say we're looking at it from different perspectives.
And what amount of investment we are thinking of on that, if you have any idea right now?
I don't know, Anne, if you know generally per year. So just to repeat that for the microphone, about $45 million in natural gas, another $100 million in resources or so a year.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And one more. The 36 EV stations, are they going to be at public places only, or we are trying to partner with some other private places like some Target complex or something, or they're only exclusively public places?
The ones that we're doing as part of our program are only in public places, but also we're adding some in places that are only going to be accessible for the city. For example, we need to be able to have some at the yard, so that way vehicles can charge there, but we're trying to maximize how many can be used by city vehicles, for example, at the Civic Center complex, but we do have to set some aside. The yards that he example where they're not going to be accessible to the public, but without them, we can't have a green fleet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our SVP representative, Councilmember Teresa O'Neill.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. And, the next couple days I'll be in Roseville, so we have a lot of interesting meetings. So it'll be interesting to talk to our comrades at some of our fellow members about, I mean, they're kind of blown away when they see what SVP is doing, because, a lot of utilities are experiencing declining load. And so I think we're somewhat of an anomaly in a community where the population isn't growing that much. It's not, it's all, a lot of the, obviously we know the industry and other folks that are attracted to the business climate in this area. Well, one of the things I thought, Manuel, that maybe you'd have a copy of the, SVP making the Sunday Comics page. Everybody go back and get your Mercury News from the weekend. That one, I forget the name of the comic strip where they talk, and I thought, you can tell how much the times have changed and people are talking about electric utilities and electricity and all that, when in one of the comic strips is discussing the problems with utilities in California, except for some of those, publicly owned utilities like SMUD and Silicon Valley Power. I thought, now you guys have made the big time. You're in a nationally syndicated comic strip. But
Yeah,
but
we're going to order extra copies, I can tell you that right now. I already checked the website.
yeah, right. Yeah, we should get some framed copies of those. So there is all kinds of exciting stuff going on, and touching a little bit on what Councilmember Shahal said. I mean, we're beginning. I also represent Santa Clara on the executive committee for NCPA, and so we're just at the very, very beginning stages to discuss looking at other means of, emission-free generation, and looking at things that we haven't really looked at seriously before that will benefit all the member agencies in NCPA. But since Santa Clara is the biggest piece of that, and most certainly Santa Clara. So, I mean, I think we all have a huge challenge because we have made great strides in cleaning up a lot of our generation, but when you look at the targets that the state has and what we need to do for the future of the planet, we have some big challenges ahead of us. And so, it's great that we have a lot of creative people who will be able to look at that and to see, because, it is a possibility, or, there's more and more pressure being put on us where DVR was considered the ultimate in electric generation when it was constructed in 2005. And even if you look at the Lodi Energy Center, which is one of the generation assets located outside of the city of Santa Clara that, where we receive some electricity, and there's a lot of pressure being put on utilities to not use any natural gas, just like they don't, and understand, there are, well, we know there are climate change issues related to greenhouse gas emissions, and one of the places it comes from is natural gas, which was just a few years ago, we thought that was, the cleanest of the clean, and now, so we have huge challenges in front of us, but I mean, I think we will have to be very dedicated, and we have to continue to invest in the infrastructure. You can't let it, just like your house, you can't let it, that maintenance slip and say, okay, well, things are going great now, but we always have to constantly be looking towards the future and figuring out, how are we going to meet this challenge? But I think it's great that we're updating a lot of the substations and some of the other projects that we've done over the years, and this program, it's great also that we're expanding the charging stations, because I think that's one of the things that has been. When I talk to my friends, like, I'm surprised, a couple of my friends recently bought cars and they didn't even get a hybrid. They got a, just a internal combustion engine car. And I said, well, why'd you do that? And they said that they're kind of like, they're afraid that they're going to be out someplace and they're not going to have, and be able to, they won't have the range, they won't be able to find a place to charge. So I know these are within Santa Clara, but I think that helps develop a culture of accepting that. And with this program that I know that, like Kathleen Hughes, who you mentioned, has been working on this whole about, getting the rebates through the dealers and really trying to encourage people to buy electric vehicles. And so then the challenge goes to us to be able to provide all that electricity as we electrify everything. And as we look towards electrifying things like trucks, and having been at a couple transportation meetings, one of the big, we want all the bus fleets and all the trains to electrify, and Caltrain's going to electrify. But then, like when I was talking to people from transit agencies in the Midwest and the Northeast, and they said, worse, the bigger challenge than cooling those buses in the summer is heating them in the winter when you've got 60 people on a bus and it's below freezing. So at least we typically don't have that problem. But I mean, we as the whole electric industry has to be really thinking about what are we going to do tomorrow. And I was so glad when we replaced the San Juan coal burning plant with wind plant. So, we are continuing to invest in new assets, whether we own it or whether we're entering into those long-term purchase agreements. And so, I mean, you all are fortunate to work in such an area that's so needed and also is so stimulating and challenging. And it's nice, At least I didn't see too many, I saw a few tweets out there that were like, when's the power coming back on? And like, well, we're sending somebody out. We don't know. We don't even know yet what caused the outage. But I think some of the other people, there was some self-regulation going on Twitter, so that people, others were like, well, gee, they don't even know yet what's wrong. So we do appreciate the patience of everyone when these things happen, and to realize how dangerous it is to send people out in these conditions. And we, have to be reminded of the unfortunate passing of a lineman in Palo Alto just a few weeks ago. So, I mean, these are not easy, jobs. These are very difficult jobs. And, so we have to make sure that that the community supports always having a climate that, whether it's our electrical workers or our police department or our fire department, that they have an environment and a culture that they can work safely in, and that we will support them in being able to help create that safe environment for all of us. So thank you for the great work. I'm going to take the slides set tomorrow and show some of the other people from around Northern California to show them what we're
Make
doing.
them jealous. Yeah. All right, Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Manuel. And just to add my own 2 cents to the weather this past weekend, I was coming back from an event Saturday night, and I made a point to drive around the city and see what was going on. And I did see some crews out there at 10 o'clock at night, pouring down rain on San Tomas Expressway. And I saw the police department out there too, but they were definitely out there, and I really gave them kudos, for being out there doing what they were doing. But I have to mention, I noticed after the bulk of the storm was over, and I heard about all the different outages. Rivermark didn't have any outages, or I didn't hear of any in the north side. But it made me remember about how when Rivermark was planned, that the wires were built underground, and I thought, well, that is definitely a good argument for and support for burying the wires, because when the trees go down, they can't take the wires with them. So anyway, I know as we plan going forward, hopefully that concept will still be part of the planning. But I just, in your report and just following up on the EV charging stations, I just had a question regarding the locations. There are 8 locations listed on one of the slides. And so I was wondering, is that where you intend to install some of these future charging stations?
Yeah, so what we're looking at is a multi-year project for charging stations, and we're focused on these 8 locations were the ones that we put as part of our RFP. In addition to that, in the RFP, we talk about additional locations in the future, so we're looking for an agreement that's going to allow us to do that as well.
Great, okay. And so just to clarify, so the plan is to put in 36 public charging stations in 2020, and then the forecast for an additional 100 over 5 years?
Yeah, what we're looking at is 36 public charging ports, and I'll change that because, each station has 2 ports, right? So it's ports, and that's how we typically measure it. And we're looking at a 5-year forecast of over 100. Now, when we talk internally, we have a very exact number, which is what engineers will tend to do. I like to leave it a little more open at over 100, with the flexibility to do even more if we need to. So it'd be the 36. If you look at the total we're probably looking at close to 140 charging ports over that period.
Great. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to all the staff for all their hard work.
Thank you. I don't see any other council comments, so we will now go to the public. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this report? All right, seeing none. Again, thank you very much for the report, and please express our appreciation to SVP, all the employees for all their good work on behalf of the City of Santa Clara, and you make us very proud, so thank you very much. Do we need to note and file this, City Attorney?
Yeah.
There was a
File?
note, someone note
I don't
and
know if
file?
it was seconded.
I made the motion to note and file.
Oh, yes, by Councilmember Davis and seconded by Vice Mayor Mahan. So there's a motion and a second to note and file. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And it's only 8:04. Wow, okay. All right, moving on. Next, we have discussion and possible action on report from city attorney on taking action by council consensus. Do we want to hear this by consensus, or do we? City attorney.
Well, now we come to the exciting part of the agenda, parliamentary procedure and open public meetings law. So this, we got into somewhat of an arcane discussion at the Governance and
Yes, we
Ethics
did.
Committee about how you put an item on the agenda. And it evolved into a side discussion, really, of what does it mean to act by consensus. And I expressed the idea that I wasn't familiar with this concept of acting by consensus until I came here to the city of Santa Clara. And then so the council asked me to do the committee asked me to do some research, and I did. And there's really nothing in the Brown Act that talks about acting by consensus. I did find, and I put into the report, a section of the Brown Act which talks about the things that a member of a legislative body can do when they want to hear about something in the future. And the section is Government Code Section 549542A3, which says, furthermore, a member of the legislative body or the body itself, subject to the rules or procedures of the legislative body, may provide a reference to staff or other resources for factual information, request staff to report back to the body at a subsequent meeting concerning any matter, or take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. So this is in response to something that's not on the agenda. Those are the things you can do. So you can always ask to put something on a future agenda, or you can simply ask staff to do something, and it doesn't have to be any particular process. It's really, the key phrase here is subject to the rules or procedures of the legislative body. So some city councils do have procedural rules for how they do things, and this council does have a procedure that we were reviewing at the governance committee about placing items on an agenda, and it had this phrase of consensus, acting by consensus. And I believe that in the report, there's a suggestion that, if we're going to continue to do that, from the point of view of the minutes of the council, it's kind of hard to understand what that exactly is. I've seen it operate basically. It seems to be some kind of procedure, and it's really not in Robert's rules either, of kind of saying, shall we do this? Is there any objection? Which is fine. You can do that. But it's kind of hard to know exactly what that is. That's not really a procedure in Robert's rules, which you have. So it's up to you. You can do it however you like. If you're comfortable with the current process of calling it by consensus, is everyone comfortable with us referring this to staff, or by consensus, are we requesting the city manager to come back with something? You can continue to do that. I do think there may be some workload issues if a matter is a larger matter, and that may be something you want to bring up at the priority setting session in January. But other than that, that's really all there is to it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilmember Davis, you have questions, comments?
Okay, so I think that when I guess Santa Clara is unique in saying by consensus, but I think what you kind of said was when we do that, we need to be a little bit more clear in what the ask is, and then to have that back and forth with the city manager to see if the capacity is there to do it by consensus. Is that what you're kind of saying? You want a little bit more clarity? So if I say by consensus, we need to do yada, 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 and then I can put a date on it for the city manager to bring it back, but then she can say to me, no, we have the T-Max says I need more time for her to, to get to that part. So I'm just thinking out loud here. So would it work easier if we just say by consensus and just be a little bit more clear?
I think that would be very helpful, just so that, one, it's on the record and it's documented as part of the video, and it allows for us to go back if we want to study the directive a little bit more clearly and watch the video. Sometimes we do walk away saying, I think this is what the intent was, and so any clarity and direction to staff really helps us.
Okay.
And I've not been a stranger to speak up in terms of issues of workload, and thank you for that opportunity.
I'd just like to make a point that there's nothing wrong with, let's say you have an item where some council members seem to want something to come back and other council members don't, and you can't really say there's consensus. Let's say someone says, is there consensus? And some says, well, I'm not in favor of it, I'm not in favor of it. At that point, you could make it into a motion.
Okay.
And you could vote
Okay.
on it. There's nothing wrong with that under
Okay.
the Brown Act.
A lot of
Great.
times
All right.
we
Yeah.
use consensus when we have a member of the public that comes and speaks under public presentations and there's an issue that they're bringing to our attention and it's not really on the agenda, so we'll refer by consensus to a staff member to, contact or talk to the.
Right.
And the one thing you can't do is you can't really have a substantive discussion of the issue. And if it's not on the agenda, let's say someone comes up here and brings something up, just because you're talking about putting it on a future agenda, you can have a discussion about putting it on the agenda, but you really shouldn't be discussing the merits of the actual item itself.
Well, that's why a lot of times we just refer to staff
Yeah.
by consensus, so we don't have that discussion. I think that's where we're using my, so, am I hearing that we want to keep it as it is, and if it comes to an issue that we do not reach consensus, that we actually have a formal vote?
Right.
Is that-
Sounds good.
Or we can say no more consensus, we just have a motion and vote. So what's the pleasure of the council?
But I think that maybe does, like you said, the issue about if it's from a public presentation, that it's one thing if something has been agendized, or it's like a public petition that's been agendized, then we can respond to it. But like the public presentations, I think the point that you made,
Yeah.
I don't think that we're allowed to make a motion, or
I
can
think
we
we
just say
can.
we make a motion that the staff research? I mean, I'm not sure.
No, you can make a motion.
Yeah,
You can make a
could be
motion, you could say, is there a motion to direct staff to bring this back? You can, clearly the Brown Act says, or take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. So you can take action, which would be a motion, to direct staff to bring the matter back at a future agenda. It's okay under the Brown Act to do that, even on an item that someone brings up under public presentation. But you can't actually take action on the substance of it. Simply,
Sure.
you can just simply putting it on the agenda.
Okay, so am I hearing that we want to take action on items in the future?
Yeah.
By consensus, do we want to take action in the future? I'm sorry, I just have to keep saying that. Is there a motion for that?
Yeah, okay, so I'll make the motion that we have the option of taking action, making a motion to put it on an agenda, future agenda item.
Or refer to
Or
staff?
refer to staff, either, yeah.
Or do we take no action?
You have a procedure right now that's set forth. So the question is, do you want to make any actual changes to the wording of your current procedures, which are about how do you put an item on the agenda?
Well,
Which actually-
then the answer
No.
is yes, because
No.
items referred, if you look at adding an item to the agenda, the attachment that's on
Right.
our agenda, says, by council consensus, an item may be referred to city manager for inclusion.
Oh.
So do we want to take that out by council vote and take out the
You
word
can
consensus?
amend that and just simply say, council may take action to refer, instead of saying by consensus,
Yeah,
just take
so-
action.
So I think we should change that then.
Well, what does
That's
everybody think?
adding an item to the agenda. We shouldn't do it by consensus, we should take it by
By
actual
action,
action.
yeah.
So can I have a motion to change that wording?
Okay, so I'll make the motion to change the wording from consensus to take action on an item that may be referred to the city manager for inclusion on the city council agenda. Just for that one sentence, Brian.
So we're talking about modifying that policy?
Yes.
on adding an item on the agenda.
Right. So the word consensus comes out and action replaces it to put it on an agenda.
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second on that. Any discussion on that? That's very clear then. Okay. Any member of the public like to speak on that issue? By consensus, can we have this man removed? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right.
Because
Okay.
it does say, it says consensus later on in the second page too.
Where, can we replace, maker of the motion, can we
Yes,
replace
yes.
all the consensuses with
Yes.
action?
Yes. Can we add that to the
Why don't
motion,
we do
please?
this? We'll just,
Just bring back.
we'll bring it back
Yeah,
okay.
with the proper wording changes.
Okay. So
Thank
we'll
you
do
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay.
Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Next item we have is report of members and special committees.
Mayor, I just have one.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Yesterday in the marketing committee, Santa Clara University representative Butch Coyne let us know that they're having their 20th annual Festival of Lights this weekend, if you don't have anything else to do in Santa Clara.
Saturday is sold out.
You, really? Oh, Teresa. Okay, so then I will say this weekend, Friday, December 6th, not sold out, according to Councilmember O'Neill, at 7:30 p.m., held at the Mission Santa Clara, which is beautiful. And the tickets are online for www.scupresents.org. So go there. It's an excellent, I remember Teresa O'Neill bought me 10 years ago, and I loved it ever since. That's why it's sold out. Thank you.
Same time as our tree lighting and the
Yes,
home
and everything,
tour.
a home tour,
Yes,
so yeah, if
okay.
you're not busy.
Yay. All right, any other council members? Vice Mayor Mahan?
Request on. Yes, I attended the Triton board meeting on November 21st and wanted to report on a few things, a couple of new things they're starting. The first is they started a program of teen docents. They have 9 teens from Santa Clara High School. They get 20 hours of training in art history, art appreciation, and visual thinking. And they volunteer for a small stipend scholarship for a year to give docented tours of the Triton Museum and whatever exhibit is there. And we got a sample tour by one of the students, and it was excellent, just totally outstanding. They knew the pieces and the artists and how to explain what the art meant and answer questions, and it's going to be a very successful program. Each student gets a $450 scholarship at the end of their year's service. It's a new program they've started, and I think it's going to be very successful. A couple of fundraising events are coming up. The first one, this is one I never have to ask my husband twice to go to. It's their tequila tasting event. It's on March 21st, 2020. And then their big gala, their annual gala, is May 2nd, 2020. And the theme this year is Night at the Opera. So mark your calendars for those 2 great events. Thanks.
Thank you. Any others? All right, moving on to City Manager, Executive Director Report.
Just want to remind the council and announce for the any viewing audience that on December 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Central Park Library, we will be holding our first community meeting to talk about the Civic Center rehabilitation or build-out project. The purpose of the meeting is to engage with our community and gather input to help shape the future development project. As well as for December 6th for our tree lighting ceremony tomorrow, we will begin to mention and communicate out to our community about the event and some adjustments that we're making that are weather related. For example, we are going to limit the event from 5 to 8 p.m. That's shaving down 1 hour. The tree lighting ceremony will be at 7 p.m. A lot of the community and attraction events, such as Santa, will be moved inside to the auditorium of the community center, as well as ice skating will be contingent upon ice conditions. The sales of alcohol are canceled. There's going to be limited food, as well as the pyrotechnical show is also canceled. So we'll be pushing out more information, and council members, if you are going to be participating, we encourage you to get there by 6:45. And then I also I know there was a lot of thank yous that were put out, and I want to also acknowledge the very hard work of police, fire, public works, water, and sewage, who together really, with SVP leading the way, really provided really excellent services over the weekend. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for calling that out as well, all the other departments. All right, so that leads us to our adjournment, and Councilmember Watanabe, you're going to take this one this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity. We are adjourning this evening in memory of a long-term Santa Clara resident and City of Santa Clara employee, Janice, who also everybody knows her by Jan Lieberman. And I had the pleasure of serving as a library board trustee with Jan Lieberman for a couple of years, and I was very sad to learn that she passed. Jan Lieberman was born in Chicago on November 14th, 1930, and graduated from Theodore Roosevelt High School in 1948. She was voted most likely to succeed in her senior class. Jan attended the Madison campus of the University of Wisconsin, where she majored in education. She married Donald Lieberman in June 1952, and in 1953, Jan and Don moved to San Jose. For 8 years, Jan taught second grade at Scott Lane Elementary School in Santa Clara. In 1965, she earned her MA degree in school librarianship at San Jose State College, where she taught children's literature classes for 20 years, followed by many years as a children's librarian at Santa Clara City Library. After her retirement in 2005, at the age of 75, she continued to serve the community as a City of Santa Clara Board of Library trustee. Jan also created the Jan Lieberman concert series at the library, and which was also sponsored through the Library Foundation. Jan is remembered for her leadership in the Santa Clara County Reading Council, her popular tips and titles book review newsletter for grades K through 8, and many children's literature workshops. Jan passed away on November 28, 2019. Jan was predeceased in 2012 by her husband, Don, to whom she was married for 60 years, her parents, Della Tark and Lois Summers, her brother, Wesley, and sisters, Burl and June. She is survived by many friends and extended family members.
Thank you. If we could please have a motion to adjourn this meeting in her memory.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion second to adjourn in Ms. Lieberman's memory. Please register your vote. And with that, meeting's adjourned. Thank you. It's you again. Okay.